If you're new to the world of PC gaming and haven't done a lot of research, there are most definitely a lot of new concepts and big terms being thrown at you right now. One of the biggest questions that we get here when customers are looking for a new PC is, what graphics card should I get? And the response more often than not is, what monitor are you using? The resolution of the monitor and GPU relationship is key to having a good experience while gaming on a PC. And there's a ton of debate in the PC community as to whether or not 4K, 1440p, or 1080p are the best choice. I wanted to dive into the differences you get with each resolution. And I'll give you an option for low range, mid range, and high range graphics cards, along with why certain resolutions are better or worse for gaming. So let's get into it, starting with 4K. 4K is the gold standard resolution for gaming, and yes, 8K exists, but most of the gaming industry doesn't support it. 4K video is 3840 by 2160 pixels, and to show how much bigger that is than 1440p and 1080p, I found this graph. As you can see, that is much larger than 1440p and 1080p. In fact, 4K video is 2.25 times larger than 1440p and 4 times the size of 1080p. I say all this to illustrate the point that it is really hard to generate solid frames when your graphics card has to process that many pixels. And a lot of the new PC gamers I come across are looking to get a PC for first-person shooter multiplayer games at 90 to 120 frames per second. And to get those kind of frames at 4K, you're gonna have to spend some cash, and not just on the GPU. Plus, 4K monitors are expensive as it is, but if you want one with a higher refresh rate, you better have a massive budget. And even if you do have that massive budget, you're gonna run into the issue of input lag with 4K. So if you're trying to get sweaty on Call of Duty and you need your aim and movements to be precise, then 4K isn't the best option. Now, if you're looking to play single-player, story-based games, I'm talking Cyberpunk 2077, the Horizon series, The Last of Us, and so on, then 4K is a solid option, but it's still expensive. When it comes to 4K graphics card options, the first and cheapest option I have is a Radeon RX 7900 XTX. Now, this is on the lower end because the 7900 XTX is definitely capable of playing games at 4K, but you need to sprinkle in some FSR. FSR is AMD's AI tech that helps boost frames in a game in case your graphics card isn't putting out the performance that you desire. The 7900 XTX performs slightly less than the 4080 Super in some games, and in others, its drivers just aren't as well optimized. The 7900 XTX comes in around $869, and next up is the NVIDIA RTX 4080 Super. The 4080 Super is just all around a great high-end card. It runs 4K, it has DLSS 3.5, it's just great. NVIDIA has their own AI upscaling technology named DLSS, which functions the same. And if you buy an older GPU, it may only be capable of earlier versions of DLSS and FSR. Both of these are a big factor to consider when buying a graphics card. The 4080 Super is the card you buy if you wanted a 4090, but you didn't want to pay $1,500 to $2,000. The only thing that really sucks about this card is the price. It's $1,000 for this card. The last option that I have here for a graphics card is, you guessed it, the 4090. I feel like everyone saw this coming. The 4090 is the best GPU that you can get right now. It can run 4K, no issue. Hell, it can even use path tracing in Cyberpunk with max settings. But you're gonna be paying $1,500 at the very least, and that's if the cheapest variants are available. Otherwise, you're looking at closer to $2,000 for a 4090. Overall, if you're buying or building a PC for gaming, I don't think that 4K gaming is the best option yet. 4K gaming makes a lot more sense if you need more of a workstation build for editing video or 3D modeling and also happen to game. Between the high price, input lag, and the simple fact that most games are better optimized for 1440p and 1080p, I wouldn't personally recommend 4K gaming. But let's take a look at the opposite end of the spectrum with 1080p gaming. For the longest time, 1080p gaming was the standard, and to an extent, I think it still is for a lot of people. I upgraded to 1440p a long time ago, but we're gonna get to that later. 1080p is the safest option when it comes to gaming. The hardware requirements are lower compared to 1440p and 4K, and there's a wider range of price options, which means the 1080p 1080p is great for people with a really low budget. Esports players even use 1080p because you can achieve the highest amount of frames on this resolution. That being said, the difference in image quality is noticeable, even between 1080p and 1440p. I'm not saying it's bad. If you have solid specs, good monitor, 1080p gaming can still be a great experience. 1080p has been the standard for a while, so a lot of graphics cards are optimized to run games at high or max settings at this resolution. And like I said before, you have a wide range of price options for both monitors and graphics cards. But when it comes to graphics cards, you can actually jump back a generation or two for 1080p gaming. Because of this, both Nvidia and AMD have a lot of options, but you need to pay attention to the VRAM of the card when it comes to more modern games. Ideally, you want to have around 8 gigabytes of VRAM for 1080p gaming. So based on those parameters, I have 3 options for 1080p graphics cards. Check it out. First up is the RTX 3050, 8 gigabytes. It's around $200 and it's DLSS 2.0 capable. It should be able to run most FPS shooters on high settings, maybe not always on ultra, it really depends on the game. And DLSS will help with more taxing single player games like Cyberpunk. This is most definitely a budget option, but the 3050 8 gigabyte can give you a solid gaming experience for the price. Second up is the Radeon 6700 XT. Now, I see this card come up a lot in 1440p conversation, and sure, yeah, it can be used for 1440p, but not at max settings. The 6700 XT is gonna give you really awesome performance at 1080p max settings though. It's about $300. It's a solid card if you have that kind of cash. For the third option, I'm just gonna go with the RTX 4060. I think this card makes sense if you have a couple extra bucks to throw at a 1080p build. You're gonna be able to run pretty much every shooter at max settings in 1080p with great frames. And it also has support for the latest versions of DLSS. So if you're into single player games and you wanna dabble in 1440p, you can still use DLSS and get solid performance. Overall, 1080p is slowly getting left behind as the standard for gaming. More and more often, I see people buying specifically for 1440p gaming. The PC community generally regards 1440p as the sweet spot for gaming. You get higher definition image than 1080p, but none of the input lag from 4K, and access to higher refresh rate monitors for reasonable prices. While the prices are higher for both graphics cards and monitors, it ain't 4K prices, I'll tell you that. Seriously though, if you have a solid budget for your first PC, I would consider starting off with 1440p. It is by far the best experience for gaming.
How it feels to chew 5 gum.
There are a couple options when it comes to GPUs for gaming. One thing to note with the modern generation of cards is that DLSS and FSR upscaling technology have a role to play. My rule of thumb is to never buy a card and plan to rely on its upscaling technology. DLSS and FSR are kind of the cherry on top you use to boost your graphics card performance, but not carry it. So when it comes to 1440p graphics, my low-end pick is the Radeon 7700 XT. This comes in around $400, and I can already hear the comments, "Bro thinks $400 is low end." Look, this is just the reality of 1440p gaming. You're gonna have to pay a little more to get a massive bump in resolution. The 7700 XT is the low end because it kind of struggles with more demanding games like Jedi Survivor or Cyberpunk. And this is definitely not the card to get if you're planning on using ray tracing. The frames just drop when you turn it on. But like I said, I prioritize getting solid frames in FPS multiplayer because that's what I see most gamers asking for. And the 7700 XT can do that. All right, on to the mid-range pick with the 7700 XT's bigger brother, the 7800 XT. For about $100 more, the 7800 XT gets you more frames and it performs about the same as NVIDIA's 4070 Super. The only exception to this is with ray tracing and path tracing. That's gonna tank your FPS. Here's the kicker though. The 4070 Super is about $600 compared to the 7800 XT's $500. And while $500 is not cheap, you're still saving some money. This card also supports FSR, but even without, you're gonna be getting 60 plus frames in every taxing game. In some cases, the 4070 Super and DLSS will outperform by about 10 to 20 more frames, but you're paying $100 more for it to perform better in some games, not all. And last but not least, for my high-end 1440p card, I picked the 4070 Ti Super. This card is almost capable of 4K gaming, but I put it at the top tier of 1440p because it's not quite there yet. You can buy this card, a 1440p monitor, and then just never worry about running a game in 1440p. That being said, it is an $800 card. While Nvidia has it placed as a mid-range card in its 40 series lineup, its price definitely doesn't reflect that. I place it right before the F you tier, which is the 4080 Super and the 4090. It can't quite keep up with 4K resolutions, but is very reliable at 1440p. We actually build a lot of nice 1440p builds here using this exact card. But I would never use the words budget and 4070 Ti Super in the same sentence. Knowing what resolution to buy for is one of the most important things to consider when buying or building a gaming PC. And in my opinion, you always want to aim for 1440p. It's the best possible experience for any sort of game on the market. I would stay away from 4K gaming at all costs. Personally, the technology is just not there yet. But if you're on a smaller budget, I'd stick with 1080p. It's a lot easier to build a high-end 1080p build on a budget and then upgrade to 1440p hardware down the road. Hopefully these GPU recommendations help someone looking to get into PCs, and if you like the content in this video, we can always do another one for CPUs. Just let us know. That's a whole different side of PCs, and they're also important to gaming performance, even though everyone seems to focus on the graphics card. Thanks so much for watching. Guys, if you can do me a quick, big favor, like, subscribe, comment, all the good stuff that you're supposed to tell people to do here on YouTube. If you enjoyed the video and you want to see something else, let us know what you'd like to see in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you again next time.